Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Harry Bloom, the founder and president of Benchmarking for Good. And I'm delighted to bring you a new episode of our series, Video Lessons for Leaders, where we profile leaders of Jewish day schools really doing something right, and try to kind of understand, get under the covers of, what are the things that cause them to actually excel based on hard data, based on the survey data that we've conducted with their school and a whole bunch of other Jewish day schools. And I'm delighted to introduce Rabbi Dani Rockoff, who is the current head of school of Westchester Day School in Westchester County, New York. Rabbi Rockoff has a distinguished experience both as a community rabbi, also was the dean of the Matmidim Judaic Studies program at Hyman Brand Hebrew Academy in Kansas City, K-12 Judaic Studies principal and school rabbi at the Denver Academy of Torah. And then more recently, now approximately three and a half years ago, joined Westchester Day School as head of school. And why is Rabbi Rockoff here? Welcome, Rabbi Rockoff.
Thank you, Harry.
Really for two reasons. One is in the environment that we're facing, the importance of Israel education and Israel studies has never been more vital, that we prepare our school students and graduates to really understand and be able to advocate on behalf of Israel as they pursue, education in college and graduate school, and then in the workforce and in their communities. And yet, we do a lot of parent surveys. We did a survey this over the past year with 12 Jewish day schools, very diverse schools, different parts of the country and different denominations. And parent satisfaction with the Israel studies education leaves something to be desired, based on net promoter scores, where we look at percentage of parents that are very satisfied relative to those who are dissatisfied. And yet, Rabbi Rockoff and Westchester Day School have overcome that. And it turns out that of all the schools, a dozen schools or so that we've surveyed over the last year, parent satisfaction is the highest of those schools at Westchester Day School. So we're delighted to kind of get underneath the surface of that with Rabbi Rockoff and appreciate him spending his valuable time with us, exploring, what's underneath that, what advice might he give others. So welcome again, Rabbi Rockoff. Let me start out just by asking you if you want to make any comments before I ask you a few questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure many of our schools, of the colleagues who might be listening to this, are in religious Zionist schools. We learn Hebrew language. We have Judaic studies. We might have teachers from Israel. We might have specific programming around Israel. I'm sure there's a lot more in common with all our schools that we have. So not necessarily brand new chidushim. There might be a few things around the edges that I can share that might be helpful. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Harry.
Okay, thank you. So, first of all, let me ask you this. Are you surprised that Westchester Day School, again, relative to the other schools and even in the absolute, has shown excellence in this area? Or is this something that you would have expected based on the effort that's been put into this, the emphasis, and the feedback that you've gotten from parents?
Mhm. I would say I'm not surprised that we rated highly in that area, and I think there's a lot that we've done for that. What surprised me was that relative to the other schools, we rated higher than other schools based on parent feedback. That surprised me.
Okay. Well, maybe we can share some nuggets, and also we always invite our listeners or readers to kind of come back to us with things that they're doing, perhaps that you're not going to be mentioning.
Sure.
So let's talk about, are there any formal processes or curricula or instructional guidance or student engagement programming that you feel contribute importantly to the success in this area that you might want to share?
Sure. So I guess what maybe I'll just say three categories: personnel, curricula, and programming. So as far as personnel, our school over the last number of years, before I started, and I've continued that, we do bring in more shlichim from Israel for a number of our grades. And for me, one of the purposes of Orim Shlichim is having teachers who can teach B'ivrit, of course, potentially teach the Judaic studies as well, who can be religious role models, and also can be living embodiments of life culture in Israel. So it's filling a need, but it's also filling that role of bringing life of Israel into the school. And I'm sure that's shared with so many of our schools. We
Yeah, so
also,
that's probably not that distinctive,
no,
right?
exactly. Like I said, that's not so distinctive. I think we bring, currently we have four teachers who are more Shlichim, as well as other Israeli faculty. So again, that's not distinctive per se. We also have Banot Shirut in the school that we share in partnership with one of the communities. They have them for like Shabbos groups, and we have them during the rest of the week. We also have Shinshinim. I'm not sure how many schools, if that's relevant for their communities, but essentially a Shinshin is a just post high school student in Israel before it's like a gap year before they go to the army. And so we have through the Westchester community, we have two shinim that we've had for the last number of years. I think that's another personnel piece that might be distinctive as far as bringing Life of Israel into the school. So that's on the personnel side, investing heavily in, role models, living embodiments of Israel, people who like, again, I'm sure you experienced post October 7th. You might have had, as we did, teachers going back to serve in the IDF during the year. So while it presents some personnel challenges, it also represents something really significant that like they're literally on the front lines.
So let me just ask a few questions about, I guess you mentioned sort of three
Yeah,
categories of personnel. Um, what do they bring with them in terms of curricula versus what are you basically asking them to execute from a curriculum standpoint?
right. That's a great question. So maybe let me address sort of globally as far as curriculum and programming, and then I'll return to your question. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. As far as curricula per se, so I think we have some things that we do that are pretty standard, and we have something that's unique. So as far as what's standard is we have Hebrew curricula. We've used a number of different curricula over the years. As far as Hebrew, we have, we've used Talam, we've used whatever. It doesn't matter which one. I'm happy to talk with anyone about Hebrew curriculum another time. We also, some of our teachers have developed their own unique curricula. So our seventh and eighth grade teacher has developed her own Hebrew curriculum over the years. And then there's a joint program that was two of our veteran Judaic Hebrew teachers developed as part of some kind of a project. They developed a program called Yisrael B'Chayai, which runs from um, first grade through eighth grade. And
Mhm.
there's a curriculum that focuses on different cities in Israel and different aspects of it. And it's thematic and it runs throughout the course of the year. We
Mhm.
even have an art installation that was based on work that the classes have done that's in our hallway. So as far as what's distinctive, I think that's something that really breathes life into our school. There's a lot of ownership from the faculty for this program, and it
How
has,
long has that been in place?
I think that's been in place since before my time, slightly before my time. I think maybe they were part of some cohort one summer where they had to come back with the program to the school, and so they created this Israel B'Chayai program. And I've seen anecdotally, I haven't done the survey or the research yet on it, but when students will go to Israel and they visit Haifa or they visit Yerushalayim or Tel Aviv, like their learning in class is very relevant. They're like, oh, I know that. I learned about that in school.
Mhm.
It's like
Mhm.
very real. That's the goal of the program is to bring Israel to life for the kids.
Mhm.
And I'd say it's very successful.
And how extensive, in a typical week or month, I mean, depending on how you think about it.
I would say, again, depending on the flow of the year, but like it's maybe like a once a week or so thing that they will return to in themes throughout the course of the year.
And this goes from early
First grade
childhood,
through eighth
first
grade.
grade through eighth
First grade
grade.
through eighth grade. Yeah. So
And
that's something
is this
distinctive.
documented somehow that
Yeah. And if there
you'd
are
be
schools who are
willing to
interested
share
in,
or
yeah, if there are schools who are interested in learning more about this from our teachers, I can share documents and put you in touch with them. I'm sure that it's definitely a passion project for them that I'm sure they'd be happy to share
yeah.
with any schools that are interested.
And how do parents how are they sort of if they are kind of brought into to appreciate what you're doing in terms of Israel studies? Or is it just the kids happen to bring something home, or are parents more actively involved?
On the curricular side, I think I don't know that we do anything distinctive other than sharing the information with parents and newsletters and features of what we're doing in the classroom or throughout the school. But yeah, maybe it's just done very effectively so the kids feel a sense of ownership. But that brings me maybe to the next category as far as programming. Again, I can't tell you what we do substantively compared to every other school in terms of number of programs or impact of programs, but we do have a lot of Israel programming. Some of it is initiated by our Morim Shlichim, some of it just by our Judaic studies faculty in general or leadership. Our Benot Shirut do a lot of programming. That's kind of one of the expectations of what they do in the school, in addition to, let's say, supporting small group learning or whatnot. Their focus is really on programming. So they have a bulletin board in the hallway that they're regularly updating with around holidays and Israel. And, they run a lot of programs engaging kids on themes relating to Israel. The Shin Shinim will also jump in and do some of the programming. But it's really a very heavy, specific focus on connecting the school and kids to Israel. Um,
May I ask who's supervising these three
yeah,
groups of folks?
sure. So they're mostly supervised by our director of Judaic Studies, who oversees Judaic Studies in Hebrew. The Shinshinim are sort of are mostly operate in our lower division, like first grade and below. So the director of that division supervises most of their activities. When it comes to more doing some of the programming, then they'll interface more with our director of Judaic Studies, and they'll partner with the Benot Shirut as an example.
Is there any sort of hands-on exposure of your maybe older students in terms of trips to Israel or that sort of thing?
So our school does not do a trip to Israel. We have explored it, even as recently as last year, but ultimately decided not to.
Hmm.
Happy to talk more about that if that's where you want to go with this. But yeah, so
Well, it's amazing that you're already doing so well in the absence of that. So I can only
right.
say, wow, that would be
Yeah.
yet
Well,
another.
I think to that, well, maybe to answer your question, one of the reasons I think we don't, and many modern Orthodox schools don't, is because so many kids are going to Israel on a regular basis with their
Yeah,
families on summer programs. So it's almost like for us, it doesn't need, that's not our job to take them to Israel to see, tourist sites that they're going to go see with their families. It's not really a good value add for us to be doing. But on the flip side, I think, at least in our community, so many kids have been to Israel multiple times, even at young ages, that I think that maybe translates into why there is so much Israel engagement from our school, because it's really nurtured from both sides, from the family, from the school. Um, maybe there's more engagement on that front.
yeah.
I also just want to return to your first question. I think that our teachers, also our Morim Shlichim, bring a lot of the programming really into the classroom. I think there has been a heavy emphasis of those particular personnel on breaking Israel to life for students in the classroom and really connecting to Israel as part of the curriculum, but even above and beyond the curriculum, connecting to their personal stories of being from Israel, their personal stories, if each appropriate, of serving, in the IDF, of really like connecting with the students and making that a focus of their purpose in being here. And I think that's really translated. I think the students are impacted by it, and it looms very large for them. It brings it alive. So I think because you had asked before about what is there anything that these personnel I'm talking about are doing, and I think the answer is yes. Even well above and beyond anything that we're asking them to teach. Like, okay, here's the curriculum. We want you to cover these topics, and here's the materials to use. I think they're bringing a lot of their own creativity in introducing songs and introducing foods and all sorts of activities that they maybe would be doing in Israel that they feel passionate about bringing to our students.
And they're typically there for 1 year, 2 years. What's the
I'd say
tour?
minimum two
Okay,
and typically three and possibly even four.
really?
Yeah.
That provides a lot of continuity.
Yeah, much better continuity, yes, for sure.
And have you seen, I mean, you've been at the school now, this is your th third year,
This is now my fourth year. Yeah.
fourth year. So what changes have you seen over that period of time in the Israel studies area? Anything that you feel kind of marks learning by the school about how to do things better?
Yeah. I would say, honestly, in my few years here, we've had these essential components for the most part, as far as having the personnel, the Shpunut Shirut Shinshinim, Morim Shlichim, having the Shroba Chai program, as I described, having a lot of those in-house things. So I think the components were there, and I think it was already very strong, frankly, when I came. And we're always trying to build on that. So I think the only thing I would say I've really added is trying to provide more structure around it and to have everything sort of work more seamlessly together. Because one of the challenges is you have a lot of people with a lot of ideas. So how do we harness that energy in a productive way? Right. So you often have like, well, Yom Ha'atzmaut, we all have to, everyone has lots of ideas how to do things. How do we kind of bring that together? So I think we've improved in that area.
One of the things I'm sort of imagining that, you obviously have your regular Judaic studies teachers. Do you see, are they welcoming of all these three different types of Israel-based folks coming in? Do they view it as, has there been any issue in terms of sort of having the groups work together that you have found effective?
That's a great question. I think overall, we do a very good job here at integrating everyone into a very cohesive community. So there doesn't seem to be a huge disconnect, which can happen. Sometimes you have like the Israel cohort feels very like alone or isolated or above or below. And while certainly you have like the feel of like the Morim Shlichim team, if you will, but I think here it does feel much more cohesive. And I think we're able to pull that off. So everyone brings what they have to the table. So very often your American Judaic Studies teachers, even if their Hebrew happens to be very good, will appreciate what the Israeli faculty and young volunteers bring to the table, and vice versa. Those who are coming, having them appreciate what we do here and like what are some of the bedrock foundations of our school. It also happens to be our school was founded in 1948. So just a few months after the founding of the State of Israel. So it's all like kind of in our DNA to be very aligned with the story of Israel and, building a Jewish day school in America, on the heels of Israel's independence, in educating our students, not just to be Americans and good citizens of this country, but to be very much connected to Israel religiously, the concept as well as the daily life. So, I don't know. Maybe it's something we really do emphasize in our
in the
messaging
in the
and in our
DNA?
life.
Yeah, yeah. So finally, one of the issues that frankly a lot of day schools struggle with, which you've alluded to sort of tangentially, is Hebrew language. Obviously, one of the things that the Shinshinim and the other shlichot, etc., bring with them is Hebrew language that is authentic. Um, what have you experienced in terms of challenges and also successes in terms of getting your kids to be fluent in Hebrew? And is that a goal at Westchester Day School?
Yeah. I think something that I've tried to do over the last number of years is make sure that during our true Ivrit classes that we are focusing on the fluency of our students and not just getting the experience of Israel, but getting the skills of the language. And have we worked towards getting, just because you have a teacher from Israel who speaks Hebrew, as we all know, doesn't necessarily mean that's translating into the kids learning exactly to speak the way their teachers are speaking or to use the as a language. That's unreasonable as well. But I think we're constantly trying to be more thoughtful and intentional about how we're utilizing these teachers to best impact American students who are learning Hebrew as a second language, and what are the best practices around leveraging that tool. And I think that's a work in progress, frankly. I think probably for most of our schools, anyone who might be listening to this, I think we're all finding different ways. I'm in touch with various other school leaders who are
Definitely.
all like, trying to crack this nut. How do we, this is a great resource that we have, having these Israeli faculty, some of whom, and by the way, we've emphasized in our hiring when we're looking at, let's say, Morim Shlichim in particular, or a Hebrew teacher locally, for example, those who really have the mentality and the training to be able to teach Hebrew as a second language to our students. And, there's curricula that support it, but there needs to be training around that, and there needs to be experience ideally around that too. And I think we've seen increased success on that front recently, that I hope will continue.
So I mean that's a very important point. When you're offered, shlichim or shinshinim, uh, you obviously must have some selection criteria that you're using. Just I assume take just anybody who is interested.
Oh, for sure.
What can you share about that, if
Well,
anything?
on the Shinshinim side, that's kind of its own story. The Benoche route, yes. And as far as teachers, absolutely. We're looking for, first and foremost, those who are really going to be effective teachers for our kids in whatever domain we're looking at, whether it's on the Judaic study side or the Hebrew language side or both. And, as the field gets more sophisticated, and there's a more of a trained pool of Morim Shlichim coming in, we're really trying to look at those who could be the most effective on the pedagogical side, in addition to, being great at the breaking the Jewish Israeli life to bear in the school.
And is that are there interviews that are conducted in Israel, or is that done
Oh, as far
stateside?
as what we do, our practice here has been to do them via Zoom. In previous schools, I had occasion to be in Israel once or twice and interview people in person. I know of colleagues who make their annual trips to Israel to interview their cohort of Morim Shlichim, for example. I'm sure that's better. If we invested the time and money in that, I'm sure it would be better. But currently, we just do it through Zoom.
Great. So just to thank you for your generous time allocation here. Any sort of parting words to perhaps a colleague whose school is not, you know, sort of as successful as yours is in terms of, at least certainly based on parent satisfaction with the Israel Studies program. Any words of guidance that you would give them based on your own experience?
I think as far as parting words of wisdom, that it's all about the people, is what I would say. So we could talk about, yes, I mentioned some curricula that we do that are unique. That's certainly fantastic. But it's finding those individuals who can embody what you're trying to bring, and then kind of like give them enough agency, and guidance, but enough agency to really have that passion play out in the school. I think that's where we have been successful, and in translating into that commitment to Israel, and that really the feel of the love that our families come away with.
And are in general your Judaic studies teachers, are they long tenured? Are they
Generally, they are long tenured, yes,
which
and
has
of
to
course
help?
balanced out by some of the shlichim that come for 2 or 3 or 4 years.
But even in my experience, even getting them for 3 or 4 years is not the norm that I'm used to, at least in my
No,
experience.
you're correct. Yeah, I mean 2 years really has to be the minimum. 3 years is already great, and if you can manage a fourth, we've had
Yeah.
a couple of those in my tenure, and that's really when you see some dividends if you're able to get that fourth year, because then they're already experienced part of the community and can just like, and they're here for a mission. So they're very passionate about what they do, and I think that really comes across.
I think that's great. That's great. A great ingredient. Well, thank you very much, Rabbi Rockoff, for sharing your experiences and perspectives at Westchester Day School on how to create an Israel Studies program that, seems to be objectively strong and also well appreciated by your parents. And I invite any school leaders who see this program, who have additional ideas that they'd like to share about contributions to an excellent program, to please be in touch with me, and then I will pass them along. Thank you very much, and continued
Thank you so much,
success
Harry.
at
Be well,
Westchester
everyone.
Day School. All the
Take
best.
care. Bye bye.
Goodbye.